Hey there, it's John. Welcome to the channel. Just down in the basement, checking out what's going on in the world. And I came across a video on YouTube about a story that has been percolating for the last couple of days. It's November 13th, and 2 days ago it was Remembrance Day here in Canada. And for those people who don't have a day like this, it's a day where we honor the people who gave their lives in service of their country. They call it Veterans Day in the United States, I believe. And the video came across here on YouTube is from Michelle Rempel Garner. She is an MP for the Conservative Party. I believe her riding Calgary Nose Hill, so just north of where I live here in Calgary. And her video is called Disgusting. Woke Ontario School Principal Ruins Remembrance Day. So she goes on at length to talk about this and how she's addressing this horrific thing that happened at a school in Ontario. So let me just read the National Post headline on this, and then I'll read something quickly from the newsletter that I get from Michelle Rempel Garner every week. Ontario school played Palestinian protest song in Arabic as its Remembrance Day music. They chose an Arabic song about peace for Gaza as the only song to play for a Remembrance Day service, said a disappointed parent. Now, over to the newsletter that Michelle Rempel Garner writes every week. By the way, she could be a great journalist after she quits her job as a politician in the future. But from that newsletter, Principal Aaron Hobbs defended the selection during one of those meetings. They had meetings regarding this, saying it was chosen to bring diversity and inclusion to Remembrance Day that is usually only about, quote, a white guy who has done something related to the military, unquote. Again, I'm going to say that one more time. Quote, a white guy who has done something related to the military, unquote. Now, as someone who has celebrated Remembrance Day ceremonies since I was old enough to stand, and somebody who's gone to Remembrance Day ceremonies in the cities I've lived in, including here in Calgary, this is something that I consider incredibly vile and disrespectful. And I think the parents who were upset about this, as I mentioned in that National Post headline and subheadline there, their parents need to pull their kids out of the school. They should pull them out of school, and they won't return until Mr. Hobbs is removed from his position. He should not have a job as a principal at any school. And parents need to understand that a lot of teachers think this way as well. I think we learned a lot during COVID when kids were learning from home, on Zoom calls and whatnot. We found out what teachers are actually teaching their kids today as we fall further and further behind in reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're learning this activist and warped mentality and ideology in school. So parents, take your kids out of that school until this man loses his job. Which brings me to the diversity and inclusion part of what Mr. Hobbs said this was about when he played that song on Remembrance Day. I'm going to take you to the U.S. election now. Donald Trump is now the president of the United States, and I've been watching him nominate people for his cabinet. And I think DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is going to die in the United States with Donald Trump. I'm hoping it happens here in Canada within the next year when we have an election here and Trudeau is finally shown the door. And I hope it hits him in his ass when he's leaving. And we elect Pierre Poilievre as our new prime minister. And Michelle Rempel Garner will no doubt be a cabinet member. I have no doubt about that. But I think with Donald Trump, DEI is going to die. It's ingrained in everything in the United States government now because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats over there, even in their military, if we're talking about Remembrance Day and remember people who died for their country. I mean, they had drag queens doing recruitment videos for the military, and they're falling way behind when it comes to recruitment. When you hire somebody based on an immutable characteristic, for instance, the color of their skin, it means you're not hiring somebody for the same reason. And that's racism. See, they've got it all wrong, and I'm talking about the left here. Diversity, equity, and inclusion excludes people based on an immutable characteristic. It's racism, it's bigotry, and it needs to stop. I think about Martin Luther King all the time when I hear DEI. Martin Luther King stood up 1963, I believe it was in Washington, D.C., in front of the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln, right? Looking over that pool of water, 400,000 people showed up. And his speech was, I have a dream. And one of his dreams was, this is what he said, I want to live in a world where my children are judged not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. You know, conservatives think you get hired on merit. We don't care what color your skin is. If you are, looking for a job and you're good at it, you will get hired. It doesn't matter what color you are. It's the left that are constantly making color or those immutable characteristics the most important thing. I often wonder how long it's going to be before the left marches on Martin Luther King's memorial and wants to tear that one down because they've lost their way. Thanks for watching.